Hello and welcome to this week's edition of XR Talk. This week we're going to do a little activity that's fairly common, popular these days, where I'm going to ask you, what would you rather do? What would you rather study to point out some of the stark differences that I see between 2D static content that is being offered up for learning experiences now versus the immersive spatial possibilities within WebXR? And to do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some existing Hyperdocs and other learning experiences that I have found throughout the web. And I'm going to compare and contrast that to what is possible within an XR doc. To begin, let's take a look at this volcanoes activity. It is a Google drawing that has some animated GIFs on it to try and create some activity or some movement or some depth. And when the students click on the various titles, they are brought to another tab to open up that particular activity. So we have the Explore, then when you go to the Explain, you go to a Quizlet, and each of the items on the Google drawing are a link to another part of the activity. But every time that the student clicks on that link, they leave the activity and open up a new tab. So let's compare that to an XR doc built with WebXR. When I click on the activity here, I am staying in the immersive volcano activity, and I can interact with and see and complete each of the steps without having to leave the activity. If I scroll around here, you can see that I have a background that is built with an AI generated 360-degree photo. And then we can also go to complete some activities that are fully immersive and tied to the original content. So here is a 360-degree panorama of an active volcano in Russia from 2012. And you can see that I can move around and I can click on the hotspots and get more information, again, while staying in the learning activity that I originally started in. Next, let's look at this directions worksheet. Presumably this is for early education, and you have some maps and some icons and some things that you are supposed to find on the map. Let's compare that with an immersive XR doc where you can import 3D models of actual buildings and places that are typical in a community so that the students are familiar with that. They get the sense that they are moving around because we have a 360-degree photosphere. You can put actions in the XR doc that would be familiar with what they would be doing in the real world, and you can give them feedback instantly based on where they are and whether or not they are following the directions. Lastly, you can also include spatial audio so that when they go by the church, you could hear church bell rings. When they go by the school, you could hear a playground, etc. Next, we have a time-tested educational experience where you have to study the facts of a state in the United States. This is my home state of Maine. You need to understand what the state flag is, what the state seal is, etc. Let's compare that with building an immersive 360-degree Maine State Museum or Maine State Learning Experience, complete with spatial audio. So when you go near the lighthouse and the island, you have the sense and the sound that you are near the ocean. As you move away from that, because this is built on spatial audio, then the sound gets more faint and then finally goes away. You can import or create 3D models of the various things like the state tree, the state flower, the state bird, the state animal. And then you can take basic information that represents that state, again, complete with pictures, videos, 3D models, PDFs, anything that you can import to share that information. All 50 state activities include some type of timeline to understand the basic key dates in the state. And in this one is an interactive timeline that appears as you move down through the corridor, as well as surrounded with photos on the outside. Let's take a look at this activity, which is studying the experiences of World War I soldiers. It is primarily delivered through a series of YouTube videos where you have the video is embedded this time because YouTube is one of the few things that you can embed.
We used to take off on these big squadron offensive patrols, usually in the afternoon, kitted up, of course, in our long sheepskin thigh boots and leather coats. And
so you have some audio that is overlaid with some 2D rotating photos, as well as some links to some external sites to learn a little bit more. Let's compare that to a 360-degree environment where You have some oral histories of the soldiers, and it's built on proximity. So as you are walking through, you are looking at the photos, and you get
Malaria
close
was
enough.
widespread and caused more casualties than the fighting. There was little that could be done to prevent men contracting it, as British NCO Edward Bull explained.
So that is built to begin playing as the user or the student gets closer to the statue, the 360, the 3D model of the World War I soldier, as well as some actual soldiers reading their diaries of what life was like in World War I. Last example is taking a look at Japanese internment camps. Here is a very, very basic one-page Google Doc that has a couple of links on it. Gives you no sense of where and why and what Japanese internment camps were all about, versus building a 360-degree photo of a reenactment of one of the camps, embedding some actual photos from that time period. Again, the importance of being able to link to videos that have more information about the topic, but the user is able to watch the videos and stay within the learning activity and not get confused with 17 open tabs. For those of you that are new here, my name is Eric and I'm the founder of xrtoolsfored.com, as well as the new learning design format called Hyperdocs, which is meant to be the Web 3.0 version of Hyperdocs. If you want to learn more, please feel free to subscribe and follow along, or check out my website at xrtoolsfored.com, where I post information about how to create immersive spatial learning experiences on the Web 3.0 format of WebXR. Okay, let's take a second to look at how I would go about converting an existing 2D Hyperdoc into an XR doc. I have an example here of the compromises of the Constitutional Convention. Animated GIF on the first page. We've got links to YouTube videos. We have some basic facts in text. We have some photos and some activities that when the user clicks on this, they are brought to another page and then yet another page. So now I've opened up 3 different tabs just to complete that one section of the activity. And so how would I go about recreating or finding a new way to present this information? The number one way to create an immersive 360-degree environment right now is definitely with the company called Blockade Labs, using their app called Skybox. And what you can do is, much like other generative AI, you type in the prompt at the bottom and you choose the style of the photo that you would like to create, and it generates a 360-degree image that can then be leveraged to be imported into an XR doc using Frame VR. Now, in this particular scenario, we have 2 choices. We can download this as a 360-degree photo, import that as our environment, and be able to use it just as a wrapper, kind of as the background. If you would like to give the opportunity for the user to be able to move around in this image, when you click on 3D, that would allow you to generate an environment that when you import that into Frame VR, you can actually move around inside the space as if you were there in real life. Now, that capability is a paid feature within Skybox Labs, and right now it is $60 a month in order to do that. But what I would suggest doing is simply getting an account for 1 month, and you could easily generate all of the environments that you need for any of the content that you have for that year. And so it would be a little bit of a smaller investment that way. After I go into the 3D environment and generate my background, go to Frame VR and go to the gear, go to Frame Settings. Within Frame Settings, go to Environment and Performance, and I would click on Upload Custom Environment. I've already done that, and this is the net result. So we are within that same 360-degree photo. However, I can move across the room, I can pivot around, and it feels like I was there. Now, this technology is still new, much like all of the other generative AI that is around. And you can see that the floor is a little bit deformed, so it does take some time to kind of test out and play with the different depth levels within Skybox Labs. But even that being as imperfect as it is, in my opinion, it is far more immersive and far more engaging to put the student inside of the hall where they are considering the articles of the Constitutional Convention. So that is this week's XR Doc Talk. Hopefully you got some value out of that. And if you did, please consider to subscribe, give me some comments, ask me some questions down there at the bottom, and be sure to check out xrtoolsfored.com to find out more about how you can create your own immersive learning experiences here within Frame VR. Bye-bye.